Hi, my name is Simone Rhodes and I'm a student at Mercy High School. I'm 18 years old and have a job at Donut Bar and Coffee in Southfield on top of like nannying and whatever. I think credit is a really big deal, and I think that especially with my generation it isn't as talked about, and responsibility with your credit isn't as talked about as it really should be. I know the generation is a little bit older than mine, so like my cousins who are in their 20s and 30s are just now starting to get the hang of it, but I know that a lot of people in that generation are running into having really bad issues with their credit because they used it irresponsibly and now they have bad credit, they can't get loans, they have a lot of debt, and it's just kind of piling up. So I think in general it can be a good thing if you're responsible about it and you know what to do with it. Because if you let it run rampant and you just rack up a bunch of debt and your credit goes to crap, then you can be in big trouble. So it's good as long as you are responsible with it, you take care of it, you stay on top of it, and use them wisely. Honestly, they don't, simply because I'm just now entering into college, so I've really only started using credit about maybe 1 or 2 years, but it's a credit card that I have that's in, it's in a joint account between my mom and I, which I think is a really beneficial step to kind of ease my way into having the responsibility of a credit card, because as my mom reminds me all the time, the more I spend on it, the more I have to pay her back, immediately, because once it sits there for a while, it will start racking up interest, and my mom is really big on, teaching me that, which I think is nice, just so I, don't get out into the world, have my credit card, and then go crazy. But I am applying for a credit card for when I do leave for college, because I do think it's important to start building up your credit, at least slowly, and I feel like I now have the responsibility and the know-how and a job, so that helps. Yes, I do believe that credit, including credit cards and loans, has become very detrimental to society for a number of reasons. Back when the the house market crash happened, that was largely in part because people were taking out more than they could. They were taking liens against their houses and borrowing more than they could so that they could have more money, because credit was just flowing. It was going everywhere, and those people couldn't pay it back. And once that happened and the values of the houses depreciated again, there was all these people who had all this debt, couldn't buy any houses, couldn't afford to pay the debt they had, and then everyone, including the banks, was like, okay, well, I'm not going to lend any more money because you people aren't paying it back. So then everyone couldn't get any loans, and they couldn't buy any houses, and then nobody bought any houses, and then that was just a problem. But aside from that, I think, especially with credit cards, having that readily available and not taking a step like my mom did with me to teach me how to use it can be an issue, because I know people who have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt because they don't know how to manage it, and they don't understand that by having all this debt, it's just accumulating interest and is making it almost impossible to pay back. And if you're not careful with it, it can get really out of hand and be next to impossible to pay off. I believe that it really depends on the maturity of the person you're talking to, because I know that I started using my parents' credit cards when I was 16, but I can't imagine giving some of my younger friends a credit card when they were 16, or some of my friends now giving them a credit card when they were 16, because they are 18 to 30, and they're the most irresponsible, fiscally irresponsible people I know, which is kind of sad. But I think it is important to start building your credit at a younger age, and I think what my parents did with me by sort of having me have that responsibility with them by using their credit card and having to pay them back instead of, because if I didn't pay my parents back, they'd be mad. But if I didn't pay my credit card company back, they weren't they're not going to have the same reaction. So I think it was nice to like kind of get that understanding first before I get my own credit card. And, just for simple things like going off to college, like you're going to need money to buy things. So like if you start a credit card, have it like a low limit just so you don't go crazy. And having that credit history start building when you're younger is going to be really important if you want to buy like an apartment or a house or a car or anything that you really need that's kind of a bigger purchase, because you're not going to be able to get that loan otherwise. And, like some of, the older and more like influential people in my life have said, like, you never know what's going to happen. You should have credit of your own, no matter what you do with your life. And,
My name's Lisa McDowell, and I'm Allia McDowell's mom. I'm in my 40s, and I work for St. Joseph Mercy Hospital and the University of Michigan and the Olympics and the Red Wings. 4 jobs. I am a very big fan of credit cards because you never know when you're going to come across a great sale and you won't have planned to have had enough money. That said, I believe that you absolutely have to pay them off every month so that you don't lose 1 penny in interest. Credit and credit card loans do play an important role in my life because they've allowed us to responsibly purchase bigger items that we could afford at the time. For example, our house, having a house payment and predicting ahead what our monthly allowance would be in order to pay our house off in 10, 12 years has been really great. If you didn't have access to credit cards and loans, then you would never be able to predict what you can afford in the future and pay towards that. I don't think credit cards have been detrimental to society or loans. I feel that when people are educated and know how to use them responsibly, they're a great thing for society. You just get into trouble if you spend beyond your limits and you don't make the proper payments. So for sure they've been detrimental to some people, but to society, no, I think they have fueled our economy to continue to grow. I think the age at which you start to use credit is dependent upon the maturity of the individual. For example, my daughter started using credit when she was 16, my son when he was 18, so just a little bit different in maturity levels.
My name is Frida Stahoviak. I am 74 years old and I am grandmother to Allia McDowell. I am retired for 12 years, working for the city of Dearborn Heights as an executive secretary to 5 different mayors. Thinking back on the whole history of credit cards, we have been married for 54 years, my husband and I, and when we first got married, we never used credit cards. The only thing we used was cash. However, if I did go to purchase something at a retail store, say like Sears, and the bill would come, sometimes we would pay off the entire bill at the end of the month, but if we didn't have the money, we would just pay the minimum. We were very aware of our finances, but credit cards were not used extensively like they are now. Through the years, we have personally seen where credit cards are beneficial, and we do use them more so now. We still carry cash in our wallets, so if you have a small purchase to make, we make the purchase with cash and not with a credit card, because those merchants are assessed a fee every time that credit card is used. And for something minimal, for a small amount, it's not beneficial to use it. But over the course of the years, our way of life has changed too. We do use credit cards. We pay for gasoline, with groceries, and all other incidental charges. Clothing at various merchants, we have various credit cards, but we always make sure that we pay them off at the end of the month. And another thing to stress is not to have too many credit cards. Have one or two that you use extensively, but as long as you can handle the amount that you're charging each month and you're able to pay it off is what is important. My thought about credit is that it is a necessity in this day and age. Everyone should be exposed to having credit, but do it in a manner that they can handle. You can't have a credit card and run up credit card debt and not be able to pay off your charges. So in essence, it is something that should be and can be beneficial to an individual. On loans, I think loans are very important also. People would not be able to purchase a home or a vehicle if they did not have loans. Most loans are for certain lengths of time, and in that time frame, they are able to have a car, be able to get to where they need to go, and that is all done because credit has been extended to them.
Alrighty, you're good.
I personally like credit cards. I use credit cards for all purchases, primarily groceries, gasoline for the car, and we do pay off the credit cards though at the end of the month. We're not the kind that would carry an balance and then have to pay interest charges, so we try to pay off the entire debt of the credit card each month. And having a loan or like a mortgage on our home, we do have a mortgage on our home, and I think that is very beneficial to people who are in the market to buy a home or to buy a car. Most people would not be able to afford those kinds of purchases if loans were not granted to them. And the same thing, you have to do it within your scope of income and something that you can afford so that you are able to meet those monthly payments and not put yourself into a hole because you've overextended yourself. I don't think credit cards have become detrimental to society. However, it is the person that has the credit card that has to be responsible. Not all individuals are responsible, but on the whole, I would think most people know when they have credit card debt that it does have to be paid back, and they try to do it in a good time frame and within their means. I personally feel that credit cards are assets to all individuals. Sometimes the younger generation might need to have credit card, but they could have it maybe with a certain dollar amount, a maximum, and that way they know that they have to live within those means. It's a learning experience for them, but until they actually are in a workplace where they have their own credit card and are able to pay their own bills and their money is being used to pay that debt, that's a learning lesson for them.
Go ahead.
I might have already answered this previously, but in focusing on the age that someone should acquire a credit card, I don't think you can put an age to that question. The subject of a credit card would depend on the individual and if they are responsible enough to have a credit card. Most credit cards, like for students who are still maybe in high school, might be associated with their parents on their parents' account. So they have access to using the credit card and charging on that credit card, but not necessarily having to pay the bill when it comes due at the end of the month. And then when they get out into the working world and have a credit card in their own name and they are responsible for the debt is a whole different scenario, because now they are out in the workplace. They know that if they're charging things on that credit card, that they are responsible. The bill will come at the end of the month and they're going to have the money to pay for it. So in that time frame, then they are more aware of the charges that they are making because the account is in their name and they are solely responsible for it, not their parents.